Newgrounds has existed as an animation and gaming hub on the internet for decades. It's been responsible for the creation of a bunch of series you might know but don't realize are connected to here, featuring a lot of little characters and stories to be told. So join me as we go through the expansive crossover universe that takes place here. Hi everybody, I'm here in Frankenstein's lab. When you make something, you should be ready for all the different malformed horrors that can come from the results. When you come up with an idea, you just gotta hope it works out in execution or else everybody's having a bad time. For example, I'm trying to make a Frankenstein's monster myself, but organs are pricey, so I've just been putting in frozen vegetables and hopefully nothing goes wrong. It kinda reminds me of today's topic. Newgrounds is, to an extent, kinda messy, but you know what? The charm is there. I gotta clarify, since half the people watching this aren't old enough to know what a Newgrounds is, this would be including me if I was actually popular in high school. Newgrounds is a website where a lot of aspiring artists, programmers, animators, and mostly people interested in the digital art forms would be able to openly contribute their works onto the site as a way to garner attention and in some cases evolve into major properties and virality. A good example of this has to be the Adult Swim show Smiling Friends, co-created by Zach Hadel and Michael Cusack, both of which gaining traction via Newgrounds as Newgrounders and generally content creators, and now they run one of Adult Swim's most popular shows. And there's a lot more examples to take note of. I mean, had I not found this site looking for computer games to play and stumbled upon Final Fantasy Sonic X, I don't know if I would even be here. So many of these little projects were able to shoot off into other things directly or indirectly. Aeon the Hedgehog is responsible for my career. When I saw Knuckles get his ass beat, the trajectory of my life went from mechanical engineer to whatever I do now. I was too young and stupid to know how to make an account, and I'm glad I mostly stayed near the less obscene stuff like McCloud Gaming's work, Super Smash Flash, Yeah Jam Fury. Eventually I would get some of the console games. I'm glad this little propeller hat wearing choopo on the computer only went as far as Brawl Taunts, Mario Bros. Z, and of course, the Ultimate Showdown, all of which I really do enjoy and know nothing else about other than that I like the initial works. All in all, this is a really influential site. However, Newgrounds is so edgy you can get paper cuts just by looking at it. To give an idea, we should look at the origins of the site. Initially in the 90s, Newgrounds as a concept was set up by this guy named Tom Fulp, and to give an idea of the challenges we're dealing with today, the first two game series to be created and eventually put onto the site were called Assassin, which is about killing celebrities with about the Photoshop quality you would expect alongside this hit game, and then there was Club A Seal. Now, it doesn't end there because we also have one of the most important series introduced in 1999, Pico School. Uh-oh. I can count on about two hands what would be considered offensive in this game, and tragically to the three people dying to hear how I cover Pico School, I can't cover the initial version because for once I am uncomfortable talking about this one, but to put it friendly, it's about sharpshooting kids who also seem to be pursuing an education that's full of hate symbols, body fluids, no words. For the sake of this video, I will be referring to the Pico School Love Conquers All game in 2021. Pico School is overall just full of a bunch of mercenaries. Main ones are Pico, Nen, and Darnell, as much as kids as they are mercenaries. This game is a kerfuffle where Pico takes down the bad guys, revealed that Cassandra, one of the bad children responsible for the conflict, is an alien, and this is important, and ends with Pico introducing his partner at the time, boyfriend from Friday Night Funkin'. And Friday Night Funkin', that's the funny beep boop bop game, that'll be important. We'll get back to that, don't you worry. Even when ignoring the original story, that's pretty not good to see. Pico School is one of the more prominent mascots of Newgrounds. It's just obscene to think about the game responsible for the creation and how this was a revolutionary Flash game. By this point, that's just like, I mean, I've run out of footage that's safe to use for this video. It's not even like a modern day thing. It was controversial just from the get-go. If you don't know, feel free to look it up later. It's not even dated, it just always was an issue. But that's part of Newgrounds. The lack of a filter and barrier of entry allowed for a whole bunch of uh-ohs, but Pico's just an example of some of the worst stuff you can find here. And I want to clarify this from this point on what's worthy of being covered here, but essentially a good number of the games cross over with each other and to an extent act like a hierarchy of games. The primary way I determined the biggest characters to cover was through art created by the Newgrounds holiday, Pico Day, on April 30th of most years since 2006. You can type that onto Google Images and you get these big crossover art pieces. I just ended up marking down the guys who showed up the most, along with the top games, top art, and top movies on the site. Then if they had enough content or deemed essential to the greater Newgrounds world, I put it on onto this script. That's why it's coming out of my mouth hole. Full releases on Steam and console are fair game. As long as it got a substantial start on Newgrounds, I thought it was fine. If something doesn't have enough going on, we're just gonna skip them, like Cassette Girl or the Skull Kid. Like, Dad and Me is a fun game I played fairly often, but the plot is as simple as a son trying to be like his dad and slaughter all the local school children who oppose him, and shabing boing boom, you have a Newgrounds all-star right there. Blockhead is a blockhead. He's really dumb. It's funny. That's like all you gotta say about Blockhead. It doesn't really speak about the greater quality of these series, just the story aspect, which even in some of the most popular ones wasn't necessarily there, and that's okay. If there's anything big missing, it's because there was nothing other than a synopsis that works as the entire plot summary. I look at Hobo Prison Brawl and I wonder how much I can really say about this, how much can really be taken. The last thing that may raise some brows, but I stand behind this, I am a firm believer that work, depending on the context, is capable of being separated from their creators. I'm unfamiliar with the specifics and history of a good number of the people behind some of these games and animations I'm about to talk about. I'm really only going to be talking about the games themselves and the plots within them, not like any development history per game or behind the scenes drama, if any. This is just a precaution I want to add, especially since Newgrounds is a time capsule that I only casually partake in to this day, so I'm not like looking through every minimal detail, nor do I know about every creator who works on what's being discussed here. I'm only talking about the stories within the most popular or important things of Newgrounds because I have a life and your mother is waiting for me. Let me start off with the mascot of the website before we go through things chronologically as possible. The Tankmen, 2006. These shorts follow two sides of a decimated battlefield near or in a city. We know nothing else other than there's practically no civilians and exclusively fighting. War and battle means nothing to these freaks, and it is implied to be going on for months if not years. We got two sides, the one that has the main guy I used for this thumbnail, and the other ones we don't care about those ones. The main side follows the captain and his right-hand man Steve just getting by the war. First episode sees them both recruiting someone. Captain and Steve find Bill, and the other two meet Skittles. Now 1 year later, after their training, Bill and Skittles are thrusted onto the front lines, and immediately Skittles snipes Bill's, finding out he's about to become a father. Later on, both sides fight over a stolen tank and hold a 3-hour truce watching the Titanic. Most of Tankmen is just them doing hijinks where death is just a thing that'll happen. It is what it is. It is a 9 to 5 for them. We also have a group of anarchists, but they suck. We can ignore them, to be honest. They lose pretty much instantly, not trained professionals. There's no confirmation what's going on in this war, what it's for, what the repercussions are from it. It is a simple job full of lovely times and cock jokes. Honestly expected a little bit more, but it pretty elegantly, intentionally or not, summarizes how simplified and blunt Newgrounds is in terms of a site. 1999, Samurai Asshole is just what it sounds like. There is a samurai, his master's a guest of honor at a festival held by 3 religious leaders, and while there, the master chokes on some chicken, frickin' dies. Now, as is tradition, the samurai must avenge their master and slaughter everyone in the festival, even though they all feel bad. He's forced to the clouds by a dragon. The dragon dies. Samurai lands back on Earth. Then more aliens that look like Cassandra take him. The crossover. Yeah, wow. Then he lands in a giant Smurf village. I'm afraid of the idea of giant Smurfs. Doesn't matter. Ends on a cliffhanger without a conclusion. Then we got another consistent face we're gonna see often. Alien Homnid. These yellow critters are almost like hidden Mickeys in a good chunk of Newgrounds things. They appear often and are the first time a Newgrounds creation has hit the greater game market, as we're gonna see pretty often, so it's a big deal. The story begins in 2004 when the FBI intercepts a spacecraft and shoots it down, leaving one of the yellow aliens of the species stranded on Earth. As this happens, a larger squad of fellow aliens see this and spend the next straight 19 years going to pick up their pal. Now, as for that lonely alien, he's forced to keep trying to grab his ship as an attempt to escape the planet and befriends local children like he's E.T. He gets it in America, accidentally stops a Soviet missile and lands in Russia, then he's captured in Area 51. Finally, it ends with a few kids being able to sneak him out into the desert, get him out safe. However, as punishment for these children, Area 51 tries apprehending them all. So the alien pulls up a tractor beam, rescues 3 of the kids, and tragically the 4th one has its seatbelt caught. It sucks for him, he was too safe. He's now under custody of the government. Then 19 15 years later, the mothership finally reaches Earth in the game, alien hominid invasion. And in this one, the United States, there's basically just a civil war in the country. Most citizens become generic grunts for the government against the children and the aliens. And as for the 4 friends from that tragic origin story, the original 3 and original alien are friendly, mass-producing ice cream for their army to enjoy, while the one left behind spent all that time in prison. We also have the looming threat of the Grand Mothership, this being, I guess, more aliens upon the mothership aliens, I think. They kind of neutralized by the end. Grand Mothership teams up with the Russians, start taking over the galaxy. And as for the major civil war, that fixes itself when everybody has ice cream, understanding the frustrations of their ways. Everyone's nice. Also, a majority of the government side was indifferent civilians, so I'd argue that's more on them. In universe, the United States is definitely in shambles in ice cream and government tendencies. 2001, Clock Crew. I think this might be one of my favorite little crazes of Newgrounds, being a staple in the early era, being a subculture within the site. There's this one gimmick before you get added to proper Newgrounds called the portal. Essentially, your animations and other works had to get a certain score in the portal before being able to enter the main site as an upload. And this was done as a user-based moderating tool, being able to prevent weak or bad uploads for any reason and preventing them from showing up on the main site, and your work would get blamed is what it's called. It acts as quality control. It's a decent system. So this one user, Strawberry Clock, uploads a work that is literally an off-center B. That's it. It becomes its own little hit in the community, makes a full clock crew, orange clock, pineapple clock, etc. Eventually established more ideas of clock characters, made animations, made parodies. It was them being silly and doing whatever they want. It reminds me a lot of Homestar Runner. I love Homestar Runner. Maybe that's why I like these ones. So then they grew all-timers of the Newgrounds world, taken more seriously. They made a whole rivalry with a new crew, the Lock Crew. And overall, all these little tiny groups started showing up. There's all these animations of like wars, little stories with the main gang. Generally, this was all done to celebrate a relatively chilled out portion of the community. And this off-center B was then in part responsible for a new Newgrounds holiday, just being like Pico Day, but slightly better, a little bit more theming. Every August 15th, users try to clog the portal with as many bad uploads as possible just to see what makes it through without getting blamed. Just like how that off-center B from Strawberry Clock once did, and it made a good thing. This was for the better. Next up, 2002, Madness Combat. This is a lot, get ready. 15 years before the events of the first animation, there's Nexus City, and then you got director Phobos with this project called Project Nexus, basically being an attempt to pioneer immortality through reusing souls. Abominations, Zeds, Sleepwalkers, Scientists, all these little things being exposed and experimented upon in the project led to most of them being considered undesirables and sent off to whatever convenient asylums, I think. Phobos then forces Nexus City under his rule while attempting to optimize this horrible, weird, freaky resurrection thing until defeated by Dr. Jebediah Christoph and Dr. Hoffner, which then dooms the city without a leader. Jebediah takes the name Jeb and leaves with this halo thingy, the keystone fragment, while Hoffner goes insane from leading and becomes Tricky the Clown. 15 years later, this is Hank J. Wimbledon. He's a little bit dramatic, as we see when someone messes with his boombox and initiates a killing spree. One of the survivors of this fight, besides Hank, is Jeb. They're enemies now. Flash forward, and Hank has some beef related with the sheriff guy for pie reasons. We have zero knowledge about what this could have meant or what happened here, but hey, Tricky shows up and he gets transformed into a Zed if that matters for any reason. And as this happens, there's this guy named the Auditor. Why did I say it like that? It's Auditor. Okay, whatever. He makes like an agency against Hank Wimbledon. Like that's the name. It's an agency against Hank. It's got a whole thing. End of episode 4, Hank and Jeb die, both get revived, both get redesigned, and both get stomped by Tricky the following episode. All in Nevada, probably, I believe. From here, it's just really a major battle for the Nexus core and the whole process of reviving between Hank, Jeb, Tricky, the Auditor. Hank, bless his heart, not a real winner in this case. Him and Tricky lose the major battle, and then Jeb falls soon after to the Auditor. Gotta clarify here, the best aspect of this one has never really been the story. It's kind of complicated. Always been appreciated for being a frontrunner of this genre of little dudes fighting, and one that we see plenty of nowadays. Things like like a death battle in Hyun's dojo. And you know, it's good to see. Now, Hank has a super secret weapon called Not Being an Asshole to his friends Sanford and Deimos, and in turn they'll revive him so he can keep dying over and over. They chuck him into this agent magnification chamber that makes him a big boy, and then he still dies. And I'm not gonna lie, that this was a lot. Maybe I'm stupid. I just got a little overwhelmed by trying to process everything going on in these stories, especially since like they don't tell you anything. You had to like analyze everything. I went through all the shorts, non-canons, all that. There seems to be like a purgatory type place. Auditor absorbs Tricky and accidentally his abilities taken from Tricky. There's a lot. This one is still unfinished. I'm curious where it might go and whatever, but ultimately this one is about fighting a morally ambiguous but probably good cause. With that being said, I am moving on. 2003, Ed's World. It's still running. This is a show taking place in the suburbs of London, mostly episodic and following 4 self-inserts as they live their day-to-day lives. You got Ed, Tom, Matt, and depending on episodes, Tord. It's a really simplified premise, mostly without any sort of continuity, going back to the status quo at the end of each episode. I remember this one mostly for the fact that I watched every episode until 2016 when that finale 2-parter came on with the return of Tord, and then it didn't really go anywhere. It just continued from there on. I don't mind Ed's World, actually. I think it was one of the first real things that got me into animation and creative writing in general. It's just compared to some of the other stuff going on in the Newgrounds library, this is weirdly tame. The biggest outliers being the existence of Xanta. 2 out of 10 Xanta, by the way. He's up to no good. And then we know of like alternate realities, so that's cool. But again, it's just our equivalent of a comfort show when looking at everything else found on here. 2004, Salad Fingers. Yeah, it's a bit of a change up. First off, according to power scaling, I can beat Salad Fingers in a fight. They say he's street level. I can already promise you that I am at least continental level. Second, the story here is intentionally vague as much as it is unsettling. Literally, the best I can do here is say this appears to be at least post-World War I, some sort of nuclear event. It justifies how some of the psychological aspects occur on here. Really look at this world and tell me that that's not the case. Salad Fingers might just have a bad case of radiation and a whole bunch of stuff going on. It's a whack ball sandwich with some kooky crazy fries on the side. 2006, Fancy Pants. This one's easy. It hardly has a plot because it's meant to be a whimsical animated platforming adventure. The first game lacks a plot, the second one has you getting ice cream from the mayor of Squiggleville, and then a rabbit takes it, so you gotta hunt it down. And then the third one has a pirate invasion that captures your sister Cutie Pants. That's it. I love Fancy Pants. Fancy Pants is very good. 2006, again, animation versus animator. This counts. Alan Becker uploaded the entire first season onto Newgrounds. This counts. This season follows New Guy 3, Becker's little self-insert, as he's animating and eventually creates a stickman, later named The Victim, that comes to life so they fight. New Guy wins, removes the victim from existence. Episode 2, they make a new pal named The Chosen One. In the first fight, it gets trapped and forced to act as an ad blocker, eventually escaping, doing a final battle with another figure created by New Guy, the Dark Lord, and both of them go on to destroy this computer in 2010. So then about 4 years later, in 2014, New Guy has this new PC, new life, new legacy, makes an orange stickman known as the Second Coming. It befriends some other colorful stick people, leads to a massive miscommunication involving the deaths of these new pals. Eventually they agree to become friends when Orange can animate well, and New Guy is still exclusively making stick figure animations. He desperately needs help when it comes to animation. I would say this is warranted. Generally, the rest of these stick figure animations can be inserted in whatever convenient context. They can be put into computer games and apps. They all have sentience and can be manipulated with aspects across all of them. But fortunately, I don't have to worry about them. They were never uploaded onto Newgrounds, and they count as spin-offs, so that's not an issue for me. But animation versus Minecraft, League of Legends, the Irish potato famine, all of that, it's not Newgrounds. It's just like where my flimsy little brittle hands draw the line. The next proper season of animation versus animator starts to introduce the Rocket Corp, being a group of agents trying to obliterate any internet cultures acting out of line, including the Chosen One and Dark Lord, who during their time away from the series started causing death and destruction over the internet. Until the Chosen One got kind of bored, they went their separate ways. The hate washed away from him, and just like Kratos, which one of these super pals had the better redemption story? Anyway, this leads to the Outer Net, this being where internet creatures of free will all go and live. The Dark Lord starts spreading a virus with the intention of infecting everything ever, so it's like a super duper dangerous thing. And then there's the Rocket Corp also here, just trying to prevent more harm being made. Then season 3 sees more of the victims and to an extent starts losing part of what I liked about the initial premise. I gotta note here that this is, to me, a lot like Madness Combat, where the fighting is the crucial part. This is the part that people are here for. I'm very tempted to revisit this one at some point. I'm just gonna put a plug on this story since only the first few episodes should have counted, honestly. Currently, there's a new game under works that looks pretty fun. Go check it out when it fully releases. It actually pretty decently replicates a lot of what made these original animations so captivating in my eyes. Real quick, I want to take a look at Newgrounds Rumble, this being a crossover with a good chunk of names featured in this group. Additional characters included here without much story include Alloy, this robot guy from a canceled GBA game. There's P-Bot, Newgrounds anti-spam bot that seemed to be pretty well appreciated among the greater community. And then there's Piconjo, I think that's how you say it, who's just like this rando on Newgrounds whose objective seems to be to kill off all the heroes of Newgrounds. Now this game in specific is really neat as it kind of verifies that all these franchises and everything represented via Newgrounds takes place in its own city or world. This is something I was on and off about, but in the end, I just see this as a connected environment. And you know, just like this whole project, Newgrounds is more about making something because you can, without much explanation of how it could work. I just think this is a fun little game catalog worth mentioning. Also, if I were to assume any of these games as the canon one of Newgrounds Rumble, it would probably be Fancy Pants, since he's my favorite, and also it has the least amount of damage to every other universe. But let's look at 2008, the start of the Henry Stickmin collection. The best way to describe Henry's adventures is being forced into a high-position job for something that there's no way you're qualified for. I like Henry Stickmin. We all like Henry. He's nice. He brings donuts to the frickin' everybody at his job. He works at soup kitchens. He picks up trash by the beach. We like him. Now Henry is born around roughly 1982, and for one reason or another has resorted to a life of crime as a kleptomaniac. His first exploitation is breaking the bank, where he sneaks into a bank located isolated in the desert for some reason, immediately goofs up, gets arrested. From here, he's sent to the West Mesa Penitentiary, and then things start getting a little bit more complicated. These games each have multiple endings, and by the end, there are 16 major endings this story can conclude on based on the decisions made in previous games. At the very least, the first game only has one true ending, but it's a nightmare from here on out, and one that I genuinely don't know what to think of, because to an extent, all endings are canon. The next game, Escaping the Prison, Henry breaks out after a ton of trial and error through either proving himself innocent, sneaking out, or breaking out. He uses the freedom and immediately risks it all in the game, stealing the diamond. While Henry's home, he sees the mayor Jean Fredrickson reveal a Tunisian archaeology exhibit. This big, giant, large diamond worth $122 million is there. We want that thing stolen. So one way or another, that thing gets snatched, and now Henry's recognized as a major criminal, and the government doesn't really like that one. It's kind of embarrassing that one of your greatest known criminals looks like this. Henry's taken into custody, and he has to make a deal with Captain Hubert Galeforce. Henry can either spend the rest of his life in the worst kind of solitary confinement, or he can get all of his charges dropped by infiltrating the airship. There's this group of other criminals, part of the Topat clan. The government cannot pin proper charges under them, but want Henry to bring them all to justice. Being brought to the ship with the help of the ever-iconic plan haver of Charles. We like Charles. Charles is a champion. In this game, Henry will either succeed with the government and become an investigator under them, he can join and lead the Topat clan, or he can steal their prized Romanian ruby and go rogue. This leads to fleeing the complex. In Canada, Henry's criminal record is enough to put him in this super duper mega prison for sure this time. He's still gonna escape, don't get me wrong, but he's also got a lot more variables to worry about. Henry can bail in 4 separate ways: alone, with the help of Charles, with the help of the Topat clan, and with a fellow prison mate, Ellie Rose. Whichever ending's picked here will determine the final ending of the final game, completing the mission. This is an incomprehensible nightmare because all the endings are super different, but none of them are necessarily wrong. The general premise is the Topat clan has an orbital station, and they're trying to launch up there and leave Earth behind, being able to just operate as a space station. The government's hoping to stop that, and depending on your previous endings of the last 2 games, there are 16 total scenarios that can occur, but your alignment and companions per story are based on which endings you start with. For example, you could be working for the government with Charles, or you and Ellie could be trying to escape with the Topat clan. Each of these endings are unique and cool and play out differently based on your intents. I love that. This is really really fun, like Henry and Ellie being fully pardoned is an option. There's the Stickman Space Resort. It's a good way to spend time with each of these characters, and it reminds me that Charles is the best character with the greatest plans, and he even goes pretty far with us on a lot of these missions. In fact, there's one where Henry and Charles go to space and have to escape and Anyway, in 2008, there was also Castle Crashers. A king has a magic crystal and 4 princess daughters are stolen by an evil wizard. From here, the playable knights from the barracks make their way all across the kingdom, try getting everything back, try to get everyone rescued, slaughter everyone who's wronged the king. There's a lot of enemies, wildlife, and a bunch of other stuff that evaporated to our mighty giant hands of chaos. And in the end, we are able to prevent the princesses from successfully being trafficked, because this is, in fact, what's going on here. You're a group of pals go through forests, factories, farms, the alien hominid flying saucers, good to see you, ultimately meeting up with the wizard again, complete obliteration, final princess is a clown. I always hold my hand in shame from that reveal, like I won the player fight that happens here. It was my first time winning the player fight. I was hurt. I was really hurt. This was like I still get nightmares from that. 2010, the start of the Super Meat Boy. Pretty simple opener. Meat Boy has no skin and suffers indefinitely. He loves the bandage girl because she's made up of band-aids, so it balances out. The infinite pain and suffering are not so bad. Now, in comparison, Dr. Fetus is full of hate and wants nothing more than to ruin that. He's not loved, so he hates everybody. One day, bandage girl gets taken away by that rotten little Dr. Fetus, and a big old goose chase ensues. One where we see Dr. Fetus is just an asshole in all regards. He is a bad person. Not a person, he's a bad fetus. He kills when convenient, full of spite and hate and bad times. Not a good fella who we quite love or respect because of so much death and destruction. Why do you do that? Why are you like that? Why is he? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Fortunately, Meat Boy has a trick up his sleeve known as being unable to be killed due to infinite respawns. He escapes all bases and even hell to save this woman, eventually breaking Dr. Fetus's glass body thing and humiliating him to the highest degree, somehow not dying though. Meat Boy has a couple of continuation games. Some to this day I don't understand why there just wasn't an attempt to make a pure sequel of Meat Boy because that would have performed really well. I'm pretty sure everyone liked how this game played. In Meat Boy Forever, a few years have passed with Meat Boy and Bandage Girl raising a daughter by the name of Nugget. Dr. Fetus steals the child, and you can probably guess where it goes. Gotta go chase them. They are traveling through time and space now. They're old. Dr. Fetus ceases to be. He becomes a god, I think. And then they win, and the Fetus breaks reality. So the game hard fixes itself over. I don't know, man. Most recent entry is Dr. Fetus's Mean Meat Machine, where he tries to clone a perfect Meat Boy clone, and that goes about how you'd expect. It doesn't go well. There's a new one coming out. It's gonna be Super Meat Boy 3D. Let's hope that's good. 2011, The Binding of Isaac demo released on Newgrounds. This counts, loosely based off the very same name as the one from the Bible. This is actually not at all even funny because like this is a very kind of dark and edgy story with that Newgrounds tone. Isaac and his mom are left living on a hill after the father of the family walks out on everybody due to the implied conflicts on finances and alcohol. There's almost a cross narrative going on here. We're told one thing and implied another based on everything that's going on. Isaac's POV sees him hating being around with feelings of not being alive and emotionally stagnant from his mother. Meanwhile, Isaac's mom seems to be hooked on to Christian cable, believes a voice up above has tasked her with removing all evil from Isaac, including a sacrifice. And Isaac doesn't really like that idea. He jumps into a trapdoor. It's almost like his fantasies of fighting the world he has to deal with. There's also implications that he suffocates himself and the corruption has successfully reached him due to his horrible life. All we know otherwise is that Isaac seems to have some familiarity with Dr. Fetus, meaning that either Meat Boy is a real game in the universe Isaac's played, or even that Dr. Fetus is some sort of demonic entity in transformation that can happen to creatures who look like they don't have complete cells or something. The entire point of this game is more of coping of this boy's tragic, horrible life. It's really brutal to see, and it's kind of fascinating that it's left in such a interesting game and nobody takes the time to properly look at it and talk about it. Anyway, 2013, Battle Block Theater. Hundreds of years before 2013, a man by the name of Perham Furbottom decided to try to make the world's greatest theater, and it was an astounding success. Everybody loves it. But Dr. Furbottom made a fatal mistake. He forbids intermissions in his shows, and one day he appears to defecate. From here on, his top hat is passed from owner to owner. Each person who wears it becomes miserable and dies a quick death. It's like the hatred and souls and torment of each person gets stuck in the hat, moves on to the next one. The hat's needed for the theater to continue. It's just that everybody is scared to wear it, and so the theater becomes abandoned and left for the ancestors of Furbottom's cats to evolve and continue the legacy. In the modern day, hundreds of little friends are sailing and having a lovely time on the SS Friendship. One of those friends just so happens to be the best friends to one and all, Hattie Hattington. As per usual, everyone's having a lovely time on the ship when all of a sudden, a storm. Oh no! All the friends go in the ocean, big ol' crash, mysterious island. Oh no, it's the theater island. What? Here it's revealed that the entire SS Friendship is being held captive by kitty cats, and Hattie's forced to wear the evil depression top hat. Hattie gets super duper depressed in seconds. Compared to other leaders, Hattie is a very limp individual. He doesn't move once he has the hat on, and the cats get very upset about that. There's riots, striking, and eventually the members of the SS Friendship orchestrate an escape, defeat the evil cats, get Hattie out of there, but tragically, he's as good as gone. He's inside a limp husk, a corpse, and so he gets dropped to the bottom of the ocean after a lovely song about buckling your pants. And from here, Hattie's top hat lands on him once again and somehow makes a big old green laser beam shoot from the sky, obliterates some innocent-ish hominids, just caught us straight out of nowhere, I guess. And then it kills a space bear, taking us straight to the game of Pit People in 2017, where the bear lands on Earth and destroys it and causes an apocalypse. Hattie was responsible for it. The main character, his name is Horatio. He's a blueberry farmer. That's all you gotta know about the people in the pits. Jumping back to 2015, Sublo and Tangy Mustard. Two friends get jobs wearing mascot suits at the sandwich chain Subpar. They will immediately get fired if they are ever seen without having them on. This is good. It's a pure, simple, fun show with good vibes, good dynamics. I love this. Please watch Sublo and Tangy Mustard. I promise you it's good. By the way, here comes an ad. Halloween 2018, spooky month. Since 2018, there's been two kids named Skid and Pump who freaking love Halloween. Every time October rolls around, they simply indulge in all the good that comes from it. Every year, they don't age, don't worry about it. Every year since 2018, the two find themselves trick-or-treating with the new creatures coming around and causing problems for the town. There's demons, serial killers, whatever this thing is. Point is, it's spooky month. They like spooky month. They like the spooky time. It's fun. It's also episodic. Why does everything need a story? It doesn't. Just let us enjoy spooky month. Please go watch spooky month. I like this. It's on YouTube for free. 2020, Ina and the Dream Barbecue. This is Sure is. I never really got this one. More or less silly funnies for the time being. It has games coming out, or chapters at least. I can imagine as more content releases, there's gonna be more cohesion and explanation going forward, if anything. This feels like silly wackies for the sake of silly wackies. Very Newground-esque. Not gonna lie, the newest ones are still just a little too early to fully verify what's going on in any of these ones. If anything, sometimes it's episodic. Episodic stuff doesn't need a story, and that's not an issue. It is never a bad thing to not have a plot, so long as you have intention and direction that verifies it. You can still have a good time, and these are more or less artistic works with different goals. It is a way to improve the craft and quality. There's nothing wrong with that. But you and I both know, especially nowadays, there is one thing we gotta bring up. November 1st, 2020, the start of Friday Night Funkin'. There is a guy, his name boyfriend. There is a girl, her name girlfriend. They are dating. Boyfriend sings silly songs while girlfriend's parents try ending the life of this little blue-haired freak who has the intention and determination to play Trivial Pursuit with his dear partner. That is about it. But it also celebrates a lot of Newgrounds. It seems to take place in what I'm assuming is Newgrounds City. It has a whole bunch of guests show up. Like Pico and friends get hired to kill off boyfriend, but that's complicated because they were a thing for a bit. You got a bunch of cameos along with some of the new characters. Overall, it's pretty important in terms of bringing Newgrounds into more relevancy. It's only a matter of time before I get a mod of myself made by some random fella. Curious where this one goes. It feels like it'll be a big thing where the actual final full nice game releases, and it'll be, you know, it'll be a big deal for Newgrounds and honestly this whole community. Apparently the mobile game just came out. That's cool. There's a lot of time left to go, and all we can do now is look forward to the game when it actually releases. But all in all though, this was really more of a chance to look at what makes this place work in terms of art and animation. It's a place where a lot of people had chapters in their careers, along with expanded in popularity. It inspired, it grew, it worked for me, it worked for a lot of other people. It was and still is a pretty decent way to show off art as it continues to hold this legacy in its own little corner of the World Wide Web. And there's plenty of little known media that has some sort of connection to the site that you might not even recognize. Geometry Dash, ASDF Movie, Oni Plays, Hollow Knight, Gilded Guy, who of all characters managed to get into Fortnite, hell, Among Us, all managed to have contributions to or from Newgrounds to some capacity, whether through connections or traction gained on the site. A lot of talented people that we still see today grew to relevancy here or posted their works onto the site that would eventually roll into numerous little empires. To an extent, me as well. But ultimately, when you look at it all, Newgrounds celebrates, it innovates, and it benefits this ecosystem. And as for ongoing projects, I would recommend checking out. The site usually hosts animation collabs. There's Bulbo, Nightmare Cops, Punch Punch Forever, Bridge Kids. This is a new one. I really recommend Bridge Kids. It's pretty good. Framemakers is made by the same team as Smash Flash and actually features a lot of the characters here as assists. Of course, again, Friday Night Funkin', the full-ass game. I had fun here, and if this video gets to 3 million views in 6 months, I will make a dedicated Roblox video. This is not a joke. This is a warning. Get me to 3 million views in this video. I promise it'll happen. But with that being said, that's all I got. Subscribe, check the description for my socials and merch and stuff. Without further ado, I think it's freaking time to wake up Frankenstein. It's wake up o'clock. So here we go. Ooh, wake up. Wake up. Wake up. Wake up.
Hi.
Hey, what's how you doing? How are you?
Are my organs frozen vegetables?
Yeah, they I mean they work, so
Please kill me.
Yep, okay. Yep, that was my bad. I'm already on it.